Welcome back to another episode of XYZ. This time we're talking about our second developer job. So we're going to cover things like why'd you leave your first job? How'd you give notice? And, how embarrassing or shocking was it to give notice? And how did you interweave interviews, with your existing job? And ultimately, was it greener on the other side? And a bunch more. So go ahead, give it a listen. We'll see you on the other side. All right. So, who wants to take the first one? Who's got the first question? Otherwise, I got it.
All you, man. Go ahead.
All right. So, why'd you leave your first job? Who wants to go first?
So I left. My leaving my first job was kind of a weird deal. There were two primary reasons I left. One, in retrospect, was kind of dumb, maybe. But the main one that got me towards the end of my first job was I was working with someone who was sort of in charge of a lot of the technical stuff at the company, and was also meeting with customers. And I was in meetings with him with the customers, and he was just flat out lying to them, like right to their face, and saying we could do things that we couldn't, and that our software handled things that it didn't. And it was just really frustrating. There it was. I'm like, so that was kind of like part of an ethical thing, that I couldn't take it anymore, because I was in these meetings trying to sell software, and he was just blatantly lying to their faces. That was part of it. The other part was I had migrated from the mainframe, like the old COBOL programming, over to, I know this was the year 2000, okay? And I had migrated over to desktop programming, in Visual Basic. It was Visual Basic 3 or 4 at the time. And I'd been doing that for 2 or 3 years, with the kind of them dangling the carrot saying, you're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to do desktop programming. But they hadn't gotten rid of the consulting firm that they hired to help build this software. So I was just like sitting there waiting to like take the reins on this, doing this software development. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling. But yeah, then basically that was the other reason, is they wouldn't ever let me program and this stuff. They kept saying they would, like I said, dangling the carrot. And then they're finally like, okay, we're getting rid of the consulting firm, Chris. Okay, now we're going to start this. But you know what? We're talking to customers and they don't want it in Visual Basic. They want it in Java. So we're going to scrap everything we just did for the last 3 years. And we're just going to rewrite it in Java. And
oh my God,
probably career wise, that would have been, great for me if I had just like, okay, I'll just ride the rails and you're going to send me to Java training and I'll do all this. But I just had enough. I was just like, you kept dangling the carrot for 3 years and now all of a sudden you're just like, everything's scrapped. And they were already losing money. So I don't know how they thought that they were going to send us all to training and rebuild everything and make more money. Anyway.
So you lasted about 3 years at your first one?
I was actually, my role shifted and I was there 8 years total.
I see.
Because I started off in the mainframe stuff, and I did that for a few years, and then I transferred over to the desktop programming. And yeah.
Gotcha. So it was like mostly like ethical, and then like they just kept stringing you along with promise of a greener field, and it never manifested.
Yep.
Sure. What about you, Almeen?
Yeah, so I'm on job number 17 of my life. But second career job. I left my first job. I knew the first job I was going to was never going to be like a permanent deal. With like the market being like pretty tough, it was a pretty good job I could find at the time. Super relaxing, like super stress free. It was just kind of like, hey, we need this like CRUD Blazor app, go build it. And it was super fun. Like I got to talk to people that were working on it, and that was great. The team around me was all like sort of like self-taught at the company, so there were some like bad practices. Like we never wrote test cases. I couldn't get that ball rolling while I was there. I got like PRs going when I got there. They started doing PRs and reviewing each other's code, which is pretty nice. Other than that, like there were some negative things about it, but overall it was like super stress free. And if I didn't care about programming, I probably would still be there because it's like super relaxing. But yeah, I switched jobs to a startup called Claimable. Little plug here: if you do have a denied insurance claim for any medicine, get claimable.com. If we don't support your medicine yet, we will.
Are they gonna start sponsoring this podcast now?
Brought to you by.
Yeah, I always wanted to work at a startup. Like I grew up watching like movies like The Internship and the TV show like Silicon Valley, and seeing all of these like startups and like Google and the whole like West Coast like programming scene. And I thought that's what like work was going to be like. Even at a startup, it's not. It's kind of close, but it's been super fun. I just left because this is such a cool opportunity to like actually go build something from the ground up, and it was like something where it's like I'd be kicking myself in the butt if this works out. So, or if it worked, if the company like became really big, and I didn't like hop on it when I could.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Was it for both of you guys? Like, was it a pay and benefit increase, or just kind of like a opportunity increase, or both?
For me, there was a little bit of a pay increase, but mostly it was just an opportunity thing. Mostly for me.
Yeah, for me it was a pretty good pay increase. If things work out well. Otherwise, the opportunity increase was 1,000x.
Sure. Yeah. So like mine was, I worked at Polk County for my very first job, and which, if you know anything about government jobs, like people tend to stick around like a long time, and there's not really like a lot of like vertical movement, like upwards. And there's also like a lot of the times just like not a lot of growth in departments and stuff like that, kind of depending on what it is. And that was basically me. I got like an associate position, junior developer position, and after like a little under 3 years, I was kind of like I was working on this scheduler application, which was kind of it was just a technical nightmare. It was essentially like scheduling out people for that worked at Polk County, like whether they were, had a union contract or whatever. All the various departments had different scheduling needs. And so we were sort of like onboarding department by department, and they all had different needs. And we should have honestly just purchased something. I think after 5 or 6 more years of them trying to actually get the scheduler app to work, they finally did buy something a few years ago. But it was just such a grind against the face type of thing. And then that combined with like I had just found out that my wife was pregnant, and I basically I did like that really old timey thing where like I go to my boss and I'm like, I need a promotion, and they were basically like, well, there's nothing we can do, and I was like, well, that's not my problem. That's your problem. Either you figure it out or I'm gonna leave. And I told them that straight up, and I don't think they really like believed me. Because then I told them like, hey, I'm leaving, and I left. So
And they're like, "You're really leaving? What?"
yeah, right. But they kind of had a sort of half laugh back because I hated the next place that I went to, which was Casey's the first time.
Oh my gosh.
And they basically took me on as contract as a mid-level. That was kind of a way they skirted around it, was hiring me back as a contractor at a mid-level salary. So that's kind of how that worked. I didn't get the benefits or anything. I wasn't super interested at the time of benefits. My wife had pretty good comparable benefits anyway. And I knew it was just kind of like a safety net to jump back to anyway while I try to find something else anyway. So I knew it was kind of never, it was always just because of the lack of vertical movement. It was always kind of a temporary, relatively temporary thing anyway. So, but I did learn a lot there. So, so like when you did, I mean, when you did like quit, what was like giving notice like?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I asked ChatGPT to generate me a 2-week notice email. I also like searched online, but it was pretty much like, yeah, I sent an email. And then at the same time, I sent like a Teams message. I was like more personal. Like the email one was just like a very formal one that I'm assuming he was going to share with like HR and his boss. It was like I told him like, hey, like I'm putting in my 2 week notice. Like let's talk in person. And then we talked, and I was like, hey, like nothing against you, the manager, the role, or anything. It's like this is a great opportunity, and I just can't let this slide. It was pretty good. But I feel like I had some experience. I never gotten like fired or laid off from a job for my like 17 random jobs I've had since I was like a kid. But so I've had some experience putting my 2 weeks in.
What
The
about you,
worst one
Chris? Oh,
was
go ahead.
I was going from Witch Witch to Panera. Panera paid like a lot more than Witch Witch at the time. So I put my 2 weeks notice in, and my manager started crying, and that made me so sad.
What?
Why?
Because he was the type of guy, like everyone at Witch Witch was like pretty much like kids, I would say, and he was like an older man, and he was like very a lot of the kids that were at Witch Witch were very I don't know, like what are the words, like from troubled homes or like unstable backgrounds. So he was sort of like a mentor figure to them. Not for like me really, but he just like cared about everyone, wanted everyone to succeed. And he was like, "Oh, like how are you guys doing in school? Like, are you guys gonna still planning on going to college and stuff?" So I just think it was also, I think, 2 other people put in their 2 weeks notices, but I had no idea about that. Like, it wasn't like a coordinated thing. So I think all of that at once was like, "No, I'm losing like all these people," and probably other
Uh,
stuff going on in his life. But
Hmm.
what about you guys? How was switching from job one to job two? I guess Ben just said, but like the 2 weeks
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah. Mine was a little odd because I was part of a kind of an exodus from one company to the next. Our director had left maybe like a year before I left and went to this new company. And when I finally saw the writing on the wall, and the other 2 other people on my team did too, and so we all put in our notice, including my manager was one of the 3, and went and followed her over there to the new place. So it was really, really tense because the guy that I had mentioned that was doing the lying and everything, that was part of why I quit, uh, really just like treated me terribly and started following me around.
wow.
Anytime I was talking to somebody, he would interject himself, and he's like, like he wanted to make sure I wasn't poisoning everyone else so I could like have a conversation with people, because
Oh my
he would just like,
gosh.
and he's like, well, when you come begging for your job back, I'm not going to, you won't be at your same salary. I'm going to bump you down. And that was,
He was like your manager?
no, I suppose he would be like director of engineering sort of kind of
I
thing.
see.
It was the roles were weird, but it was sort of like that. So he was over my manager, and but he's like, yeah, I'm gonna, when you come begging for your job back, I'm gonna bump you down. I'm not gonna let you be at this same level that you're at right now. And he was just treating me like pure crap, and he was so pissed. Sorry, I don't know if I answered the question, but that was the big thing. Was it was super stressful because they just really treated us like crap. And then I got called into the vice president's office, and he said, well, as part of your HR exit interview, which was supposed to be confidential, by the way, HR told me that you said part of the reason why you're quitting is because this person was lying in front of customers. I'm like, that was supposed to be confidential. I didn't want to, like, I'm already out the door. Nothing you say is going to change this.
Right.
But yeah, so then that was interesting. So it was very
Like,
stressful.
did he like, do you know if he faced like repercussions for that at all? Or
He already didn't like the guy, so he was using what I said as ammunition to try to get rid of that other guy.
ah.
But then he ended up losing. He ended up getting fired.
Oh no, wow, that guy he had that place totally run.
Own a reverse
It
card
was
ready to go.
it was I don't know where that guy is now, but he was total waste. He was probably the person that I have the least respect for out of everyone that I've met in my IT career. So anyway,
Wow. So like how did you, with all of that, like you finally put in your notice, but like until you did, unless you quit without a new job, like how did you like do the interviews and everything, especially back then? Like how did you like interweave it with your current job?
Yeah, it really wasn't too bad. In fact, it was across the street. So
Oh,
it was
okay.
it was very it was super convenient. Yeah, it was there was part of the town that in West Des Moines that was like there were a lot of IT things right there. Yeah, it was just really basically across the street. So it was really easy to just go over, like, take a long lunch, and that's how I did it. And some of it was, I think I preliminarily had it over the. Actually, now I remember, my manager and I had like a group interview the first time through, and we just found a conference room at where we were working, and we just we just found a conference room and called and did a phone interview. And
Both of you together?
yes,
Oh
yeah,
my god.
yeah, and
Hmm.
we were hiring people before we even started. We were finding new candidates to hire to work with over there, and we
Oh
were
my
we were
gosh.
interviewing them. Yeah, that was wild, but yeah, it
You were
really
like
didn't.
poaching and you hadn't even got over there yet?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, or
Wow.
just even interviewing people we didn't even know. Like, they're like, "Hey, you guys are coming on pretty soon. Why don't you interview this guy? We think he's okay." And then
Wow.
we were doing, it was crazy. That time was wild. But anyway,
Like
yeah.
what was like I just that just blows my mind. Like I mean, when sure was that like the only place you applied at? Or was there a bunch of other places? Like was it like from the paper or what?
Um I had interviewed two other places. One was a contracting company that I think is gone now. Well, actually, both of them were. One was CompuServe. Have you heard of CompuServe?
Yeah.
Back then, they were trying to get their foot in the door in Des Moines as a consulting contracting company, and I was going to be their first developer. And just some of the things they were saying and everything, I'm just like, I don't know. So I turned that one down, and the other one couldn't was also kind of the same kind of deal. But this one was, like I said, I actually knew the director of IT,
Hmm.
um, and I really had a lot of respect for her. I don't know if you remember, they mentioned her in that 2 years ago in the DevOps. They did a memorial to her.
Yeah.
She passed away a couple years ago, but yeah, she was a very influential, very great person, and we followed her over there, basically.
Gotcha. Like I mean, did you like get on the internet to find like the CompuServe thing or how did you look
Um,
for jobs?
this actually, no, didn't really use the internet at that point. Um, it was more of a word of mouth thing.
I see.
Uh, yeah, because like the recruiters that hound you uh, like all the time on LinkedIn and stuff now. Those people, they would get your phone number, and then
Mm.
that's how they would just call you.
I always
Why
wondered about that, how that worked, like because those recruiters, that's not a new job. I always wondered
they
how they used to do it.
they would call you at work.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's how they did, because they didn't know, the people they would get somebody's name, and then they would say, "Can you give me some names of some other people here and their numbers?" Or just what their names were. And then they wouldn't know your home phone or anything. So they would just call the company and say, "Can you transfer me to Chris Snook or whatever?" And then they'd say, "Hey, would you like to leave and come make more money?"
Now, way back then, like I think of like remote interviews now, and I'll kind of talk about, how we do interviews today, but like I mean, was there even a remote possibility that like you would not have to like go in person, like you could do the entire thing through the phone, or was that just like not ever a thing?
Uh, usually then, usually then, maybe they'll do the first interview. Like, probably most of the time with HR, it would be a phone screening interview, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes the first interview with the IT people would be over the phone, but then you definitely came in at least once after that, if not multiple times. Yeah, it was face to face after that.
Yeah, now it's all like, hey, Monday and Friday, like working from home,
Mhm.
just I'll just drop off and you know, over yeah, just take a call.
Yeah, there was no Zoom or anything like that then. So
Right. Well, yeah, like the developer environments and everything are all like you can screen share, it's like
yeah,
there's very few very few reasons to like interview in person at all. Now it's like just so convenient, at least in the developer
Yeah,
space.
Yeah,
it
I feel like
is.
the in-person interview is like the last one. It's like a vibe check. Like, is this person real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
What are some lessons you guys like learned at your first job that you kind of took to your second job? If it's like anything that comes to mind, and if there's nothing, like anything like now.
Um, I say my first job really taught me about kind of vibes, like how important vibes are to me, and also like having a good manager. Um, kind of, kind of like a general like support sense. I did not. I felt like I talked in another episode about like kind of my expectations like coming in and how naive they were about like, hey, I'm just gonna get like a couple apps and I'll just sit in my corner and like program it myself, and like after my first one, I very much knew that that whole worldview had been shattered, and I was like, "Hey, like, I need like a supporting system. I need people like good developers that work with me. Like I need an actual team, and I need a manager because my manager at Polk County was really terrible. And not so much like actively like destructive, kind of like Chris was saying. Like this dude is not following me around or anything and like harassing me, but is just like basically like an absent father entirely. Not that I wanted him to be a father figure, but just entirely missing in action, and that's really hard, especially when you're first coming on. That's really hard to do because you're really relying on that person to step up.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, it's hard. I think for me, I really a lot of analysis. I learned a lot of analytical skills. I would say more in maybe my first job, but I think maybe some of that was maybe too much. We kind of had a problem with analysis paralysis, so I think it was kind of a double edged sword because I think I got really good at analyzing things and like so determining what a problem was and ways to solve it, but also one of the bad things I learned out of that from that company was, yeah, don't do anything until you're 100% sure. And so that's, I think that ruined me for a while because I was just, I was gun shy. And I think it's still kind of have that problem today because a little bit, because it's like, my mentor, my manager at the time was just like, everything has to be 100%. If you're not 100% sure, then you go research it or we'll do, and like nothing would ever get done because you're never 100% sure about that you're going to have every scenario covered or every use case. You do what you can, you get the good, best guess to the 80% or whatever, and you release it. And then you find out, iterative development, right? But yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of like, well, maybe that was just a product of like how hard it was to ship stuff. But then I think of like, guys like Kent Beck, it's like they're doing extreme programming like in the 80s, so it's like
Yeah.
it obviously wasn't that. So,
No,
yeah.
it was really a mentality. It wasn't just him. It was just an overall mentality. And I don't know when that started or if it was always like from the beginning of the program, but it was just, hey, we want to be careful. We want to do everything right. And that's just not,
Yeah.
it's just not reasonable.
For me, it was I think I took this like just diving in everything like super super deeply. I feel like that's how I got like such good like tribal knowledge in my first like role so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And with this startup here, it's like there's not too much tribal knowledge, but just like learning all the new tech stack, just diving into every little thing. Like don't like always like look behind the curtain. This has been like my like motto so far. So like, oh, this like GraphQL stuff that I've never worked before, I'm not going to just be like, oh, it works. I'm gonna like go kind of figure out why, like really dive into it.
Nice. So like, new tech stack when you're coming into that job, I mean, like, how did you like prepare for that?
Hmm. Yeah, so I knew it was like going to be the tech stack. So right now it's like TypeScript, um, React, GraphQL, Postgres, and some AWS stuff. So I just kind of just watched a bunch of videos.
Like
There's some like
YouTube?
yeah on YouTube.
Okay.
There's like those like follow along tutorials just to get back into like the syntax stuff. And then I realized most of it was just going to be like on the job. So it's kind of like I learned the best. Um, and I joined right when they were trying to push out a feature. So like we had like 1 week to push this thing out. So it was like all hands on deck. So I kind of just like dove straight into it and just, see how far I can get. And it was kind of lucky because I did have some like, I worked with TypeScript before, as one of my internships. So I wasn't like completely going in and completely blindsided, but yeah.
So like you literally hit the ground running day one, like writing stuff.
Yeah, that first week got 20 Jira tickets pushed across, 20 little things.
Wow.
Nice.
That's
So
awesome.
like, I mean, your first day, like, did you arrive in an office, or you already had a computer and you just worked from home the very first day?
Yeah, first day we have right now we have a little office. We're getting a new one for next year. But it's pretty much just like a bedroom size with 4 desks. Pretty small. It's like in a co-working space. Showed up there. He was like, "Yeah, this morning I went to the Apple Store. I got your laptop. Here you go. Let's get started." Set everything up. I paired the first day, just to understand what was going on, and then I asked a shit ton of questions, constantly on Slack and messaging people, and see how far I can go.
It's interesting. I don't know if this is more because of bigger companies. Like when I interviewed, and like my first couple jobs were bigger companies. I don't know if it's a bigger company thing or just like a generational thing, but it's like the first programming jobs that I knew back in the 90s and early 2000s that I took and my friends took, they had like weeks long of training. Like you would go and you would learn about the systems, you would go learn about it's like you would just have weeks of classes. I don't think that's really a thing anymore, is it?
It is bigger companies for sure. I had a friend that went to Walmart, and his first couple weeks were like their boot camp. So they taught them how to use like Git and some really basic like stuff.
Okay.
But I
I guess
feel like that probably will happen at this job eventually if it gets big enough. Probably should have happened rather than me jumping my first week. Making sure I know everything. But yeah, I think it's important to have that like little like boot camp. I don't know. What have your guys' experiences been like? What's your favorite like onboarding that you guys have had?
All of mine have been complete trash. I was actually going to comment on like, I'm surprised to hear the Walmart story. I thought maybe it had disappeared, but that's obviously not the case. But yeah, I've never had a good onboarding experience. They've all been trash. Please, anyone listening to this, if you are responsible for this, please help make it better. But yeah, it's never been good. It's never been like you guys said, like, a boot camp, few weeks type of thing. That would be amazing, especially for older companies where there's 20 years of shit to learn,
Mhm.
because I don't understand a lot of the, like, working at Casey's. It's like I had never worked in retail. I just buy a candy bar and that's the end of the transaction. I never thought about like everything that happens from there. And so it's like I don't understand any of these systems at all. It's like maybe I understand the tech, but there's 20 years worth of tech too, So like, help, give me a few weeks, teach me, but that initial investment just has never been there no matter where I went.
That's crazy. Yeah, my first job, they actually had at least 2, maybe 3 people that were dedicated to IT training, which was
Was
nice.
it only your first one?
Yeah, then the second one, we didn't have a dedicated IT training person at the second one, but they definitely had like the experts in each area, like in each app, and you would go meet with them. You'd have like 1 to 2 hours with like for each system that you were going to need to know about, and the expert would walk through it with you. And that was the first couple weeks I was there at my second job. So
Hmm.
Yeah, for me, it was most of my internships. Like I lost a week or 2 or 3, just not having a laptop or not having access to anything. I think you guys remember at Casey's, it was just me sitting there for a while watching you guys, which probably paid off. Just me like learning what was going on. But yeah, having like access to like nothing. I think Source Allies, but they're pretty small, was like the quickest one. That was like a day. Everything was up and running. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely envy places that can get to a day, and I think it's attainable for anybody. I think you got to invest in it, though. And Casey's is just not a place that's not really like any sort of onboarding thing is not optimized at all. Like it's just not cared about.
Right.
One of the many problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just gotta like spend the time preparing. Just create everything for the person. Just like add temp passwords that can go reset it. Small
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is like if we want people to stay, like you got to invest in them, and the onboarding experience is a really good, like there's actual like data behind it of like an indication of whether people stay 6-8 months, right, is even their first few weeks of onboarding, like what that looks like i I mean, when I worked at the previous job, I worked at Casey's. It was a place called Komodo, and it's like I lasted there 6 months, and I knew like a few weeks in that like I was exiting, because like literally I got in there, like, well, for one, like my hiring manager, like, so that it was a full-time remote position, and uh, it was like the day before, and I was like, hey, I haven't even gotten like my laptop yet or anything, like what do I do? And like I didn't hear anything. So like I literally started the day of, and I was like, did I just get like catfish? Like literally I started and my manager didn't contact me at all. And I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have any way to like, besides like an email address of like contacting this
Oh,
guy, and
jeez.
it's like, did I just get like catfish? Is this like a real job? Is a paycheck coming, right? Uh, and I mean, it was just like blunder after blunder from then. It's like the same thing. It's like I got told that I was having Josie, my second daughter, at like in a month, and it was like, oh yeah, we'll give you parental leave, like no problem, no problem, and like turns out, no, they won't, and it's like, well, you literally told me as part of hiring me that like I would get the 3 months of parental leave, and it's like he had to like go to the CEO and get like a special sign off for like 2 weeks, and it's like I just it was the worst thing ever, and that was just not even that was just the bare mins of blunders. That wasn't even all the other problems with the tech stack and the people there and everything. But yeah, it was the onboarding was terrible, and yeah, I knew very quickly once I had moved that, oh shoot, I made a mistake.
How do companies like that survive? That's what I want to know. Like, it sounds like their IT is falling apart.
I mean, I think it's the same reason as Casey's. It's like
Mm.
I think these companies are really successful because they have really strong departments that are not IT. You know, right? It's success despite IT, not because of IT, right?
Okay, I
That's
see
my
it.
take. That's my take.
That's a really
Yeah,
good
just imagine how
insight.
much better it would be if the IT team was just like given the resources.
And I
Yeah.
mean, maybe even like at Casey's, like I feel like a lot of it's like self-inflicted. Like I feel like even we've got a lot of great engineers there. I feel like we've got the money, but it's really like execution problem. And I don't know. I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and like criticize and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I'm not a part of those conversations, but like at the end of the day, like I can say that like the execution is really poor, because I'm part of the execution, and I see a lot of the outcomes that at the high level architecture stuff, and it's like uh it's terrible. It's really bad.
Mm.
Okay, I'm gonna drop this list in the chat and I'll read it out loud for the listeners. Okay, I want you guys to like rank this when what you like value going to like your like a new job. So the list is benefits, so like everything that's not your base salary, and like stock and bonus, your pay, your work location, the team you work with, and also like the like broader team, I guess, the work itself, the prestige of the place, and then I added this one, the vibes. I can go first. For me, I think first I would have said like prestige or pay, but I think now I kind of realize work location matters a lot to me, especially if it's not close by. It's really damn draining driving and like losing 2 hours out of my day, like going down there. Um, Second thing would be pretty important would be just like the work itself. If it's not really that fulfilling, um, that like kind of kills me more than a shitty manager or something. Uh, then I would say probably the team I'm working with. Like I want to have like good people around me. Like this team I'm on right now, everyone's like super talkative and like super friendly and like everyone's interested in tech, which is like a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Oof, man, this is getting harder. Is it breaking more down? I'm gonna put
Yeah.
pay then benefits. Obviously I need to eat. Uh, and then oh man, I should put vibes higher. Uh, Vibes and prestige. But again, it's like I feel like it's not like a 1 through 10. It's more of like a bar graph of like the place, and you can just kind of compare both of them.
What about you, Chris?
I'd say so. One thing at this stage in my life, I would say work home life balance is probably number one. I'm not sure if that goes under the which of your items that would fall under, but
Sure, I should add that one. We'll
that's
say oh, I don't even know. Work location, we're starting in there.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'd say that's it's hard to say number one because if the pay isn't there, then I couldn't work there. But I would say that's for me that's like above everything else, and that's one thing I love about where I work right now is I have a lot of flexibility because I got kids, I got appointments to go to, I got all this stuff going on, and they're flexible with me, and I love that part of it because I've definitely worked jobs where that was not the case. And so I think that's up there with number one for me. And then after that, I'd probably say the team, then pay, then benefits, um, then maybe vibes, the work. But it's tough to, like you're saying, some of the, when you get down the list, it's like, wow, it's kind of hard to like put one above the other because they're all kind of equally important in some ways. But yeah. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, mine's probably like a combination. I don't know. I feel like I'm cheating, but like I like want it all.
Well,
Oh, okay.
me
So
too.
I'll say the one I can easily say is at the very bottom is prestige. Like I do not care that much about it. Like
Yeah.
I guess I'll say like at the end of the day, like I really value like three things. And it's really like comes down to like also like kind of like what drives me. It's like I want autonomy. So like it's like, hey, like kind of like Chris is saying, like it's really important to have like that work life balance. Like just trust me to do the work, and I'm an adult. I'm smart. I'll do it. Right. Give me the autonomy to do that. But also like throw a problem at me and like let me help like solution it too.
Mhm.
So like that kind of the next thing is like really like mastery. So like I really hate like so I literally quit a job because they were going to give me COBOL to do. Um,
Oh, yeah,
so
I remember
like
that.
uh, you know, an important part is like getting better, like bettering myself. So probably like the work is the category there that you provided, Elmine, and then lastly is like um is really like purpose, I guess. So like I can learn how to maybe do something, but it's actually got to be like useful, too. And that's actually why I struggled a lot in school, is because a lot of that I like really I know that calculus and stuff is like super important, but like it's not it's not that important, I guess, like for 99.99% of the problems that I face in my life.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's all around me, but like um that's kind of like the purpose there is also like super super important. But you know I guess because I'm young, benefits are not as important. That was another category, not as important to me. I rely on my wife to do like the health insurance. That's the big one. Luckily, that's I have a lot of health problems. They do not involve my teeth or my eyes. Thank God. So it's really just like I need like that health insurance and like vacation time, and like that's it. That's really the only benefits I care about. Being young, not at all. And um the pay. Like I grew up super poor, so I have probably a unhealthy feeling around how much money I need. I actually saw an article. Keep seeing these articles about your generation. I mean, like Gen Z has an extremely inflated sense of like how much money they need to feel successful. Like it is like I think $500,000 a year to feel truly successful,
Oh.
which is wild. But I'm not that high. But yeah, pay is definitely up there too.
People, oh, this is going to frustrate me so much. People, especially in my class and computer science and like people around my age, they cannot comprehend that making 230 in SF and making 90 in Iowa is not that big of a difference. Like the cost of living there is so insane versus here.
Right.
Yep.
But yeah, I do feel like people feel like they need to make a lot of money. I have not even looked into buying a house. I'm not going to even entertain that idea for a while. I haven't like looked into like any of that stuff, but man, I feel like, yeah, a lot of people are feeling the same way, especially with everything's like going up and up, more and up. Can't even imagine people that have like insane amounts of student loan debt, like how they're gonna feeling like the future is gonna be like. So yeah,
I think the pay is like really like I get like really hung up on the pay aspect of that for that exact reason. I mean, it was like I feel like like I own a house. I started owning a house in 2016. That like the housing market has gotten absolutely insane. I do not envy you in your house search. But one of the big thing that coming back to pay is like that's really bugs me is like inflation, right? Like it pisses me off to know that like I have a yearly review and I get like a pay bump, and that pay bump actually means that I'm earning less because of it's like, oh, I get 2% or something, and it's like, well, inflation was like 8% in 2022, and it's like that that sucks, and it's like it takes multiple years to like come back from that, and it's like, hey, I'm a whole year better, which is a lot in our industry. That is a lot of knowledge, especially in the beginning, right,
oh yeah, that's like
stages, like
5 years.
right, like that's a huge amount of knowledge and a huge amount of stuff that you are better at, and it's like, and I'm actually like worth less, and like that, for better or worse, like that un just triggers the hell out of me. Just triggers the hell out of me.
Yeah, because when I first, well, I don't remember when that started, maybe around COVID, but it seemed like before that, it was just expected you were getting that 3% or whatever at least. It's like if you were doing the bare minimum, you got the inflation adjustment, basically the 3% or whatever. And that's not happening for a lot of people now that I know. And it's wild because I'm getting on a tangent here, but it seems like companies are making more and more money, but the employees are not, uh, keeping up. Their salaries are keeping up.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Casey's alone. Like basically every company I've worked at is, besides obviously the government. It's like, hey, we're making more and more money. I mean, Casey's. It's like every quarter, it's like record profits. Our stock price. I've been here 3 years. Our stock price is up like 60% since I started. Like a astronomical return, and like even with a promotion, I am up like 15%, like I am sorry, but like that is horseshit. It's horseshit. And like I am, and most of that came from that promotion, but it's like a bunch of other people didn't get promoted. Like most of the other people got, like you said, like just screwed. I mean, last year, like the seniors at Casey's, all the senior developers, 0%, 0% raise because they were bumping the bonus up the following year. And what do you know? It's now the following year, and we're just like on target. And so like all those senior developers who we're reassured that all your bonus is getting bumped up. Well, actually, it's going to be not that great. Your bonus this year.
Yeah.
Hey, but you guys bought the naming rights to the Wells Fargo Arena, so the
Right.
Pizza Dome, Pizza Arena, it's coming.
Right.
I've been trying to find this clip for the past like 15 minutes while we've been talking. Exactly what you just said, Ben. It's so insane that we're expected to like job hop, even if we do really like a place. Like Ben, I'm pretty sure if you didn't like the team, you would have been gone by then at Casey's.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, why are you just not even paying the base inflation plus the actual like raise? Because you're losing out on so much when someone leaves after like a couple years. All that travel knowledge that they learned, which is the actual expensive stuff to train someone on, is just all gone, and it just makes zero sense. And it's just like, oh yeah, we're not really expecting our employees to have like be here after 3 years, so who cares?
Yeah, it's so wild. Like, I guess like I felt like that has been the case at the jobs I've worked at, but like, was that always the case? Like for you too, Chris? Like it was like it's just wild that it's like they just want you to like you know attrition, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's pretty much always been that way. I don't know why, but yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, that's where like the pay thing is like it's important. I want to be paid at least what I think my worth is, especially like at least what the average for that role or like skill level I'm at in my current location. Um, and then pay starts to matter like a lot less once I'm getting paid like the what the average developer in my like range would be.
yeah, that's the thing too, is like the pay transparency. Um, I don't know if they were transparent with you this time. I mean, uh, but like that's been something that is kind of been slow to roll out, is like the pay bands, and then companies even like are kind of shitty about those too. It's like 80,000 to $290,000. It's like, well, that doesn't tell me anything about this at all, right?
And then you get to the recruiter and they're like, oh, our actual maximum is 95. We just put it on there just in case.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
That's illegal. I think. I mean,
It-
I think that's why that law became in place in like California and New York. It's ridiculous.
wow, it is.
But I feel like we are very lucky to be in our field. I feel like everyone is very transparent about pay and stuff and being as a software engineer. I think that's what attracts a lot of people to become a software engineer. How open people are about their pay. But
Yeah, that I think that's gotten better. That's definitely changed, I'd say, within the last 15 years, probably. Because when I first started, and I found out, I think this is illegal, but I was actually told in my first job that discussing your salary with other people was grounds for termination.
Mhm.
So it
I was
was a
told that at
close.
Casey's.
What was that?
I was told that at Casey's my like
Yeah,
second week as an intern.
yeah, yeah. So it was like a closely guarded secret, and you were not to speak about it with anybody. And so I was scared to death to even mention it. But yeah, but
Yeah, I was
it
gonna
seems
say
like
it's definitely like gotten better with each generation, because like my dad was very much a you know company loyalty man. He stayed at Rockwell Collins, which is like an aviation company, for 35 years or something, and he did well there and everything, but he's very much like, he was a little disappointed when I quit my first job in only 2 years and 11 months. He was like, oh, that was a little quick, and it's like, what he didn't know is I was about to quit my next 3 jobs in under a year. So, yeah, that's that's definitely gotten better with generations. But even, I think there's also like cultures too, not like socioeconomic ones, but like at companies. Like I think of Casey's too, where like my team has a really open salary. I mean, we talk to each other, like, hey, like it's what did you eat for breakfast type of, conversation. But like outside of our team, there's still like these people where, it's uncomfortable, right? And like you
Yeah.
don't want to ask them because you kind of feel like they're gonna make it uncomfortable, and it's like it should not be this way, and it's like someone made them that way, like someone yelled at them or imparted
Hmm.
on them like their parents, and it's like definitely got to break that down.
Yeah. I remember the first time we talked about this new team. I think you asked me, Ben, and I was scared to death because I'm like, I'm not supposed to talk about this. Why is he asking me this? I'm not supposed to. It's secret.
Yeah, what
But
helped me break
that's
out of that is like at Polk County, all of your salaries are public
oh yeah, yeah.
constantly, right? And like
Government. Yep.
every year when your salary goes up, or every time your salary goes up, it gets posted, and all that shit was public. So it was like kind of like by the end of my first stint at Polk County, it was no like duh, I could just go look up everyone's salaries. Like there's no secrets at all. It was all public knowledge as it has to be. And so um I actually remember using that information to help like Sam and Andrew get more money as well. Was taking my salaries from Polk County, which were still public, and like being like, yo, like they are way under what I was back in 2017,
Was anything surprising? You looked that up, like that guy's giving Hay that much,
Oh
or
yeah, for sure. Like there were some people who had been there. It was their first and last job. They've been there 30 years, and you know, they they were essentially just like warming the bench, but you can't really fire people there. I'm not going to say that. I think that's a stereotype of the government. I think people can get fired in the government plenty, but at least in that position, you could not. It was very hard to. You had to really, really mess up. But yeah, there's folks there, making 120K, and it's like they had like this one guy. He had all of his links instead of using like the bookmark bar at the top of his browser. He put all of his browser bookmarks into Excel.
oh my
So
god, dude.
Oh my gosh.
he was a developer. So
Wow.
That's what people who just want to get into tech and like just care about the money and nothing else. They keep looking for Fang, but I keep telling them like there's like super lucrative like local or government positions where you just do like you can do jack shit or like bare minimum and just be fine.
yeah,
Hey, can we do an episode on just like programming fails and like people like what you just said? Can we do an episode on that?
Oh, dude, I have some
Because I
great
have a
ones in
lot
my
of
short career.
stories.
it's
All
just like a roast of people that can't defend themselves.
we won't name names, but yeah. Just quick note though, back to salaries. I wish you guys had seen what it was like in the late '90s, like when Y2K was like everybody was scrambling and everything was going crazy. Like salaries were just shooting through the roof. It was like if you had a pulse and you knew how to spell COBOL or whatever, you would. They were just immediately paying you like crazy, like. And I saw I can't remember the exact numbers, but I swear I'm not exaggerating. From within like 2 years in there before Y2K, before 2000, I bumped up from like 55 to 90.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, it was crazy, and it was just like, and they were doing it. They were doing it like preemptively. I wasn't going to them or anything. They were just saying, "Hey, we know everything's going crazy and everybody's salary's going up, and we don't want everybody to leave. So here, we're just going to bump you guys 20%." And that happened
Wow,
again. And then the recruiter started calling, and they're like, "Hey, we'll offer you 110 or whatever." And then and I'd be like, "Hey, they're offering me 110." They're like, "Oh, bump! Here's another bump." It was just,
wow,
and now in 2024, lucky to get a cost of living increase. So
right.
we knew those days wouldn't last forever, but yeah.
I feel like I feel like the strategy, and this is not just my first job and my second job, is like you gotta leave. If you're chasing
Yep.
money, if you're chasing like that, the
Hmm.
title, like you just have to leave.
Yep.
Because unless you get one of those situations, I'll say like once in a lifetime. I mean, it was like Y2K, and then COVID happened too, and that was kind of another time where you know IT like really exploded there for 6, 8, 12 months of it was super hot. It definitely was not that crazy as Y2K, but um, those sort of like once a generation opportunities, you basically just got to move. Otherwise, you're gonna get stuck. Unless
Right.
like Elmine, I think sort of the startup thing is a whole different gig, but yeah.
Yeah, that 2020 thing was crazy. Being that freshman year of college, I wish it was my graduating year. A different story about super my career would have been.
Oh,
Yeah, dude,
like dude, when COVID hit, like the first 3 months was like it was like dead silence, and then all of a sudden like the LinkedIn messages just started happening, and I'm sure Chris got it too. I mean, you would get recruiters like fighting each other on your LinkedIn feed, trying to
yeah,
get
Yep.
like IT people, and like you were getting like 5, 6, 7, a dozen messages a day from people being like, "Yo, are you looking for? Like, I see you're a developer. Like, come join us." And it was wild.
what was the coolest one that came through?
Actually, one of them, the one I don't respond to people on LinkedIn. Sorry, recruiters, that much because they're all just like at this point it's all AI generated garbage, but even before then it was largely just copy pasta crap.
Right.
But
My
one
name is
person,
wrong in half of them.
yeah, right, one of them I did respond to, and she really took a lot of time to like make a connection, and I like called her out and I was like, yo, like, hey, like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna like move forward with you, but like if I do, or if I was looking, this type of message would like get me to work with you for sure. So I was like, keep doing that. It was really thoughtful. She like obviously went through my experience and like got it. So I don't remember exactly what it was, but
Mhm.
yeah, it was she actually like took the time to like make a connection.
Yeah, I was told for some reason I took that advice. Oh, you don't get an internship your freshman year, which is a lie in our field. You can easily get one. So I never even like bothered to look. So I wanted to, I wouldn't be super excited if I did something because there's internships like just for freshmen, which I think is pretty cool. What would be? Would you, looking back, would you have accepted your guys' second job? I know Ben, I kind of answered that through your questions, but Chris,
Yes, in a heartbeat. One of my regrets is that I didn't go there sooner.
yeah, just walk the other way. You would have been there. Cross the
Yeah.
street, open the door.
Yeah. No, it was great. I loved my second job. Yeah.
Another cool thing about COVID, if you guys don't know, Des Moines, we have like a really big vending machine company that's like the biggest in the world. My friend started working as a software engineer after he graduated last year, and he was asking after like 6 months, he's like proven to do a lot of work. He said, "Hey, can we work remote?" And then he got told a story about during COVID they hired a bunch of remote engineers, and it was literally that like a job people like just faked it completely, like didn't do a single ounce of work for months and months and months. People like the overhire stuff where you get like multiple jobs. That apparently they hired like super bad. Whoever was their hiring committee, they hired like six of those people, so they ended up doing like nothing. And the company's like super scared of remote. It's like no one in the company can work remote right now because just the CEO is just traumatized from COVID time where they hired. I want to know even about like marketing and other roles, but like just for software engineers, like he's just like nope, nope, can't, don't trust it. Have you guys ever thought about being overhired?
I've heard a lot of people doing it. I have considered. I mean, just the double salary is like really lucrative, but honestly, like it seems super risky, and that's really hard. I feel like I would not be able to juggle it. So
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't be able to.
Hmm. If I was at my other job, I probably would have. I was sort of kind of finding that already. After talking to all these like recruiters, it's like, hey, like I can work. It's like I can work, but it needs to be like remote and stuff. Just because it says my old job, it was like to be the top performer on my team, it was like 13 hours of work. Like we didn't have too much stuff coming in on our plates. So
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, at the end of the day, like if everyone's happy with your work, like what's the problem? I don't know. I kind of view
Yeah.
it like from that standpoint too. Like if everyone is happy with it, like what's the actual problem here? Because
Right.
that's how it would work like anywhere else. It's like if I hire a guy and I say, "Hey, I'll give you this amount of money for this amount of work." And it's great. Like I don't care. I'm not like, "Oh, give me more," like no, he did exactly like what I asked. Like that's great. Cool.
Do you think it's because the company wants, oh, if you're putting in twice the time, you should put in twice the time with us? Are you going to pay me twice?